All right, we'll get started here in just a couple minutes.
We start out. Should I just wear this? Let's start off with this.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All joking aside, Karen, I highly recommend you get one of these for the family. The Oculus, it's really cool. It really is.
Very nice. Okay, we have people joining here. All right. We'll give everybody maybe one more minute and then we'll get started here.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yes, it's a beautiful spring day in Chicago.
Yes. Beautiful for a duck.
Yeah, that's normal spring in Chicago. You know, warm and sunny one day, and the next it's winter and rainy and cold again.
I was just reminding myself of the old adages. March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb, and then April showers bring May flowers.
Yep. Well, hopefully we'll have a lot of flowers next month.
Yes, hopefully.
All the rain we're getting.
My tulips are loving the rain for sure.
All right, well, it's 11:01. We want to be prompt and on time, so I'll go ahead and get started. So, as Woz said, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Karen Burmeister. I'm the Director of Marketing here at MXOtech. And for those of you that don't know me, I've been with MXO for almost 9 years now. I can't believe it's been that long. But I've been working in marketing for nearly 20. And I'm part of a national group of IT companies where we share best practices on everything from sales and marketing to customer service and how to keep our clients safe by combating cybersecurity. Obviously, that's why you're all joining us here today. You know, a lot has changed over the past 2 years, and now we're faced with the looming threat of increased conflict overseas. And businesses around the world really should be preparing now. Small businesses in particular are at most risk of an expected wave of cyber attacks. And our Director of IT, Michael Wozny, or Woz as we call him, is here today to put a lot of that into perspective and share some insights and tips on how you can protect yourself and your business during this time. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them there in the queue. I'll be monitoring it throughout the webinar, and we also have time for questions at the end. We're doing this for you, so please don't hold back if there's something that you need clarification on. This is your chance to ask our Director of IT anything and everything you want to know about security. We'll also be recording this and sending it out to you, as well as some follow-up materials after the webinar. So before I get started and turn the presentation over to Woz, I just want to take a moment to introduce you to MXO in case you're not familiar with us. I know we have a lot of clients on the webinar today, but we also have some colleagues and friends. And we're a women-owned IT company. That's our founder and CEO, Joanna Mira, right there in the middle. She founded the company 16 years ago, and during that time has built MXO into a multi-million-dollar company with over 40 employees. We provide both mobile and application development services and project management, as well as IT managed services, which includes cybersecurity. And so with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to your presenter today, Michael Wozny, or Woz, as I mentioned, we call him. He oversees all of the security planning and protections for MXO, as well as for all of our clients. He's been in the industry for 20 years, at least, having led 25, all right. Didn't want to age you too much. Having led strategic IT initiatives and projects for both small companies and enterprise level organizations. I like to joke that he could hack you if he wanted to, but I'm happy to say that he won't. He is an ethical hacker, though. He does have that certification. And it does mean, though, that he knows how cyber criminals think and plan attacks, which puts us in a great position to know how to prevent companies like yours from being compromised. So he's very passionate about IT, and he's even more passionate about his charming family, and he even brews his own craft beer. So without further ado, I will pass the torch over to you, Woz.
Well, thanks, Karen, for the intro. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. I always share a picture. I've shared this one a couple of times, actually, on a couple of webinars, but I love it. It's actually on my wall. It's real big. So this is my youngest one. Her name's Ella. She's 3 now, and she's filled with piss and vinegar. But we were at Matheson State Park, and it was just her and I was grabbing her. I said, let's take a good picture. You know what? I just noticed I had my MXO shirt on. So anyway, I said, yeah, exactly. I said, let's take a good picture. Give Daddy a smile. And she did this. And I thought it was fantastic. It's one of the best pictures I have. So I love her, and she keeps me busy and thin. So that's great. So let's start off here, guys. I'm going to start out with a little drama. I mean, I know this looks like a movie clip, but cyber war, a conflict without foot soldiers, guns, or missiles. This is a thing. This really happens. There are cyber wars. There's wars fought on the battleground, and there's wars fought behind the scenes. There are attacks that happen on a regular basis, and I'm going to show you some of those along the way here. So let's start off with just some numbers about malware and about ransomware. Those are the 2 biggest things that we're seeing right now, but this one's specific about ransomware and correlates to how these cyber wars are executed. So some scary things in here. At least you should walk away being like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I'm hoping that's the case. 37% of businesses in 2021 were hit with ransomware. It's a pretty high number. If someone told you, hey, you got a 37% chance of dying today, I'd be pretty worried. Or hell, anything, not eating today, that'd be kind of scary too. Ransomware cost $20 billion in 2021, billion with a B, it's pretty staggering. It's a lot of money. So numbers expected to rise to 265 billion by 2031. That's a steep increase. Obviously, this is not going away, and it works, right? Ransomware works, unfortunately. One of the stats that's here is that it says 32% of victims paid a ransom demand in 2021. So there's a lot of cash that goes back and forth. Now, the sad thing about that is the number that's below that. It says on average, paying victims recovered only 65% of their data. I love that little picture of the guy with the pie there. And he's like, if I got that piece of pie, I'd be pretty disappointed, but that's really what it is. So even after paying, some of your data is corrupted and unrecoverable. So here's some good news in regard to this is 57% of companies recover their data using a cloud backup. It's one of the best things that we can do, guys, is making sure we have good BDR, and I'll go over that as we kind of pace through here. So a couple of just important points though. Recovering from ransomware attacks costs businesses 1.85 million on average. It's a lot of cash. It's a lot of money. It's a big outlay. And I challenge you to ask yourself, can you withstand that kind of blow if it were to happen to you, right? That's really what this should be putting into our heads here. Out of all ransomware victims, 32% pay the ransom, but they only get 65% back. Went over that in a minute. Kind of disappointing. You would think that you get the whole product, but we're not exactly dealing with the most up and up people here on the planet. So a little bit of loss there, generally speaking. Only 57% of businesses are successful in recovering their data. Recovering their data using a backup. So that's, again, it's scary. We want 100% consistently. So making sure that we have good backup in play is really going to help us get past these hurdles that are here. So some stats there. Ukraine and Russia, obviously, these are some troubling times. We've got this war that's going on that I think is quite silly, but not exactly sure why it's happening, but it is. So what does this have to do with cyber attacks, and what does it have to do with the US and us and our small businesses and medium-sized businesses is really the question. And I'm going to try and empower you here with this. So here's really why this matters to us. So what we know about this is this: malware and ransomware rates are high and climbing. They're ridiculous at the moment. Just that slide that I showed you a minute ago. I mean, it's expected to go up by a factor of 10 over the next 10 years. So it's pretty incredible how high this is done. COVID kind of kicked us off. We had a lot of people kind of locked up in their houses that were starting to do attacks, bad threat actors, as we call them, that were starting to execute attacks on everyone. We got warnings from the CISA and the NCSA of impending cyber attacks. So why would cyber attacks be higher? So Russian hackers are backed by the state, allegedly. This is what I've heard reported, is that they're basically financially compensated to execute attacks. So what does this mean? This means that they have access to resources and to tools. They build new scripts, new tools, new malware new things, right? There's people that have financial incentive that's backed more so than they had before. So now we've got all these new weapons. We're kind of weaponizing these bad actors to give them more access to things. We know that the US has previously shared hacker's probably the wrong term, bad threat actor information to other countries, including Russia, and a former FBI head complained that we were basically giving them a list of who they would be poaching for. So we know that they've poached hackers. They've actually targeted them. Once we kind of released the list of, hey, these are the really bad guys out there, they've hired them on to execute attacks. So that's pretty disappointing, but it's a reality. There was an attack when the Crimea annex took place not too long ago. I think it's a few years back now, where the Ukraine was out without power. So a Russian cyber warfare attack took over the grid and shut it down for an extended period of time. And then the last piece here is there's only so many big fish. You know, if you're a threat actor and you're looking to make money, because at the end of the day, that this is about, that's where ransomware comes into play. There's only so many big companies that are out there, right? And these same tools that work on the big companies work on the small companies. So why wouldn't they just execute that into a different wave of smaller companies? And moreover, the smaller companies generally are less equipped to defend themselves against this. They don't have the countermeasures. They don't have the bankrolls, the budgets, whatever. At least they don't think they can. They don't have those things in place. So they're easy targets is the way it is. And look, they might have to fight a little longer to get the money that they want. They might have to do 10 jobs instead of one, but it's an easy target. And that's kind of where all this lines up. So what do we get out of all this, right? We have a lot of hackers with new threat mechanisms. They got new weapons and no one to attack. All the big fish are kind of consumed, so they start going to us. America is one of the richest countries in the world, and we're an easy target for it, right? This is one of the reasons we get so many attacks. And the internet's everywhere, guys. This doesn't stop in the Ukraine. It doesn't stop. There's not like a border on the internet that says, hey, you can't go here, with the exception of China to do kind of a border there. Great Firewall, China. But anyway, so they go here, right? They start attacking businesses, the IPs. You know, you can get to here, from here to China and back in nanoseconds. That's how small the world is. We call it the global village. Everything's very small now. You can go around the world in a matter of seconds, less than seconds, because of the internet. Okay, so let's just talk about the common attack vectors. And this might seem repetitious even, but I want everyone to be aware as to what these are. These are the most common. So during my certified ethical hacker course, I had a very terrifying man as a teacher. He said that the only safe computer is one that's powered off and locked in a closet. And there's some truth to that, but there's a lot of different attack vectors that can take place onto a computer, physical access being one. But these are the most common. I want to focus on these, right? Let's make the most value out of this presentation. Is social engineering is the number one. That's phishing emails. So in other words, we're tricking someone to do something. And there's a few types. There's general ones. These are the ones that go out to everybody. One of my most favorite recent ones is I gained access to your computer and I have your pleasures. It's really worded really kind of poorly and horribly. But that's one that goes out to kind of everybody and it's relevant to everybody. Then you have spear phishing. Spear phishing is targeted. Keep in mind, guys, LinkedIn exists. All these online job placement places are in there. It has information about you. Facebook. Everything has information collected about you. Let's look at Karen. Karen's the director of marketing. I can look that up very quickly. I can see who she reports to. I can see the company that she reports to. I can look at who the CEO is, Joanna. And I've got all this information to help me craft this email to try and get Karen to bite, pardon the pun intended, to bite on the scam, right? To get information from her, to gain access into her email account so I can possibly get some payday out of this. So it's an engineering aspect. Then you have whale phishing. That's anybody with the C level or a VP level. They're really just looking for big targets. They're huge targets. Joanna's a huge target. That's just the way that it works. And having them educated helps out a lot. There's two more that are here that are important. There's SMS and phone. The SMS piece of it alone is kind of scary. If you don't believe me, if you have an iPhone and you go under junk, if you go past your filters, this is just my kind of recent ones that I had. So they're out there, and most of these are scams to save money or to get money or something like that. Oh, your Amazon package didn't arrive. They're very clever, and they're targeted via just simple messaging services. And then phone. There's a lot that go on the phones. This isn't just spam, guys. This is phone calls and scams as well that come across in phone. You know, they'll call you up and say, hey, the sheriff's after you. You have a delinquency on taxes. They target older folks, which is really sad, but it does work again, and they just demand money. So just be aware that those are out there. So again, ultimately, this is to fool a user, grab information, whether it's credentials, access, just getting important info. And in a lot of cases, they will watch, right? They'll set up so that their observation is, the bad threat actor will set up so that their observation is unknown, right? They're kind of channeling emails through them, and they watch for an opportunity like a wire transfer, right? So they can pounce on that, intercede and go, hey, you know, instead of sending it here, we need you to send it here. We changed accounts. Huge red flag, by the way, for wire transfer specifically. But
and
that's
I can
something.
just interrupt too for a minute. Going back to what you're saying about the social engineering too, they'll often look even at a lower level employee, say an office manager or somebody that just came in, HR maybe, and try to reach out for them, acting as if they're the boss, saying, hey, buy these gift cards or make this wire transfer. And they're preying on the fact that this new employee will want to impress the boss and not ask questions and get things done fast. So the more you can talk about that with your employees and encourage them to call you and ask you if you've asked them to buy something for you is just an easy way to try to prevent yourself from being, phished.
That's a great call out, Karen. Yeah, it's very true. I mean, that happens all the time. I've personally taken part in over 20 specific attacks just like that with gift card purchases. There was one I was able to capture, but the gentleman had spent over $5,000 of his own money buying gift cards and sending them over. Luckily, we were able to kind of intercept them and cash them in and then give the money back to Apple. But that was a huge rigmarole.
Right. Well, and often too, the credit card companies won't do anything about it because you were the one tricked. You went ahead and voluntarily made those purchases. So they won't do anything to, recoup those costs for you.
And that's exactly why those scams perpetuate, is because they work, right? At the end of the day. Okay, so that's the social engineering piece, guys. The second one is ransomware. Ransomware is just fooling a user to opening up a payload. Most of the time we see this with, hey, you've got a file from Woz, put your credentials in here. At that point, they're stealing your credentials, which is the social engineering piece. And then they're giving you a executable or some kind of program that you open up. That then what it does in the background is it encrypts your files. So any files that have your computer has access to, it encrypts them so that you and your colleagues cannot open them. And then it gives you this red screen and says, hey, this is where you need to go to pay for these to get unlocked. Pretty scary stuff. And, just to be able to, just having all your files removed from you is pretty terrible. So again, what we're going to go through now is just really how to try to avoid some of these. Adding on to this, do you guys remember the Colonial Pipeline? It happened not too long ago. DarkSide was the threat actor group that took credit for it, and they shut down the pipeline for oil. It was pretty scary. They had, it took 5 days for the NSA, the US government, Uncle Sam with basically unlimited money and 24-hour labor, right? It's not like they slept. They just had teams that were working on this. It took them 5 days to get it back up partially, not fully, partially get it back up and running. If this were to happen to you, can your company withstand this, right? I'm guessing you don't have unlimited money. Otherwise, you'd probably be sitting on the beach. I would be, but anyway, can you withstand kind of an attack of this scale? And I think most of you would say no. Okay, let's roll through just a couple of examples. A few things you can do that are cheats here is this is a common phishing email. This is just kind of a broad scale one, is that it says here's a secure message and there's a link. If you just hover over the link, it gives you a quick peek as to where it goes. If it doesn't go to the domain name that it's pretending to be from, it's likely a bad idea to click it and open it. So again, don't click it, just hover over it, take a look at where it's going. In this case, it's saying it's coming from Google Docs. And at the bottom, you can see it comes from gmsghader.com/FTTP. That's not Google, obviously. It's not Google Docs. It has no Google affiliation. It should say Google or Google Docs specifically. Pay close attention to nuances of misspellings. They do that intentionally. I used to work for a company called Maurice, and we had a threat come in that came from Movies. So one character substitution, and the person missed it, and $165,000 were wired out of the country. So hover, pay attention to the details. Okay, spear phishing. Again, this is more targeted, right? This would be towards an individual and their role anywhere within the organization. So Brenda, I need you to initiate a wire transfer of $12,500 to the attached bank details. Kindly email me as soon as the transfer is done. So they're asking for money. They're coming from a position of authority in most cases, and they're targeting people that have specific access. So in this case, this is someone that does wire transfers, right? This is often with HR too. One of the more common ones you see is an email from Joanna that goes to HR that says, hey, please send me all the social security numbers, addresses, and it's asking for just this huge swath of information that shouldn't be shared via email in the first place. But this is kind of what they look like, right? So ask yourself, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So we have to slow down as soon as money's involved or important information, just pause for a moment. Here's a breakdown kind of analysis of it, just a few things to look for, red flags as I'd call them. Who is it coming from, right? Who's it going to? If it's undisclosed, like if you can't see who they're going to as multiples, that's a red flag. If the from address and the reply address don't match, that's typically a red flag of either marketing or spam or a threat of some sort, right? Some phishing campaign of some sort. So pay attention to that. Typically, it's from an individual that's looking for something that's going to come from them and it's going to be returned to them, but it will tell you the type of outlook generally. Normally, they're asking for things like this: requests for personal information, sensitive information, money. Those are normal scams, right? They're looking to target you for some information that you know, something you know or have. Promises of money, threats, or alarming. Again, the big thing they're trying to do here, guys, is invoke an emotion. They don't want you to think. They want you to react, right? This is the fight or flight type thing, right? They want you to react as soon as you can. Don't think. The police are coming after you. A sheriff is on the way to your house right now. I've seen those, right? I only have a limited time. There's this sense of urgency to get you just to react. So be aware of that, right? Too good to be true scams. I used to love the gold one. I've got 16 tons of gold and I can't get rid of it. So I'm going to send it to you. You just need to send me $16,000. I always love that one.
Hey, Woz, we have a question. Someone's wondering
Sure.
if something like that does come in, should they forward that email on to their IT company, like us, for example, or their IT department, just to let them know what's happening?
I mean, generally speaking, you can. It doesn't hurt. There's not a lot they can do. So I generally say no. And here's the reason I say no is you don't want to propagate it outward. They're normally aware of it. There's no silver bullet, guys. There's a lot of protection mechanisms that stop these things in their tracks, but there's no silver bullet. Should you forward it? If you get more than 2 in rapid succession, yeah, you just want to alert them and say, hey, something's going on. There's a lot that are coming out. Should you forward everyone? No, not necessarily. Just delete them and move on with your day. You know, giving them to I'm just speaking from the receiving side. If you forward it to me, I can't necessarily do anything about it specifically because they come from so many different locations so rapidly. It's not like I can just click a button and close them all off. That doesn't work that way. If they're
not sure, it's better to ask though, right?
Correct. If you're not sure, it's better to ask. Absolutely. I don't think any IT person worth their salt is going to be like, why did you send me this? You know, you just send it over. I mean, we generally look at it and go, okay, hey, just a phishing email. Here's the indicators. This is how I respond, by the way. It's clearly a phishing email because of these things. Just feel free to delete it. If it happens again, please let me know, right? So yeah, feel free to do it, right? The last piece of this is random capitalizations and odd punctuations. I love that too. I don't know where the breakdown is here or if like bad threat actor school is just not very good. But grammar's always bad. They've gotten better in some cases. You know, every time I see one that's got really good grammar, I'm like, wow, good for you. You know, right back, good for you. Nice try. But normally they're really, really bad. And if you start seeing grammar errors like that, just again, red flag right away. Okay, so how do we beat this? And this is what I've been kind of preaching all along. Trust but verify, right? Like, okay, this email seems legit, but I want to make sure it's right. This picture on the left is our day-to-day lives, right? I always joke that this is me at the office. I always put posties on myself, by the way. But if you look at it, this is what our lives are like, right? We have all these things that's so busy. Life is busy. Work is busy. There's a million phone calls and priorities and things go up and down the escalation path. When something trips a red flag in your head, don't ignore it. Don't ignore the email. Stop and think about it. Pick up the phone. It's so easy. If you get a wire transfer for $12,500 from your CEO or $250,000, right? Pick up the phone and be like, hey, I wasn't expecting this. Did you want to do this, right? Anybody that's worth their salt, anyone that's in a lead in an organization, a leading role is going to be like, thank you for calling and confirming. Yes, it's legitimate, or no, that's not me. It's a quick phone call. I'm sure they'd love to hear your voice anyway. Just stop and think, right? That's that trust but verify piece. Okay, let's talk about MFA, sometimes known as 2FA. Multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication. So what is multi-factor authentication, you ask? I'm glad you did. Multi-factor authentication is something that you know and something that you are, or something you have, right? So my phone is my second factor for authentication. You could use your retinal, right? For really high security things, your fingerprint in some cases, my Mac, when I log in, I use my finger to log in. And then the first one's your password, like your username and password against something you know. So let's walk through scenarios as to how these phishing emails attack, right? And how they gain access to you. So without MFA, we get an email, right? So we get this phishing email that comes out. We're having a bad day, coffee's not kicked in, whatever the case is. We click on the link. It says, hey, Karen sent you this file, Woz. I click on the link. I get this login in front of me. This looks just like Microsoft 365. It says log in to get your file from Karen, right? This is a fake URL. At the top, if you look at the URL, actually focus on it, you can see if it's actually legitimate or not. It's one way to get around it. But let's pretend I'm having a bad day. I just look at it, okay, M. Wozny and and I give them my password, right? At that point, my password's gone. It's stolen, it's been captured, right? That's an important note. Just remember that at that point, the password's been stolen here. Now, the threat actor takes that credential, and this might happen immediately, or it could happen down the road, depending on the severity. Sometimes they have scripts doing this to capture them all. They go to the real login and they log in as you. So they're going to put M. Wozny and they're going to put in all my credentials and then gain access to my account. And there he is, Mr. Putin himself. Grab my account. He's in, they have account access. They're super happy. And I'm really sad because I may not even know at this point, right, that I've been infiltrated. They may have access. They may be watching, right? Just kind of seeing what's happened, waiting for a chance to strike. So let's do the same scenario, but with multi-factor authentication enabled. Phishing email comes in. I fall for it. I put in my credentials. Again, my username and password are forfeited. It's still stolen, guys. It's still stolen. Even with MFA, if I put those credentials in, they have it, right? Or let's say they're guessing, right? They punched it in themselves. They happen to guess through your password. They go to the real login. This is where it's different. I get the pop-up. It says, Woz, are you logging in? No. That's an important step too. Don't ever say yes on your MFA logins if you're not logging in somewhere. Don't ever do that. Say no, right? Say no, and it blocks them. So at this point, you just stop the cycle. Now your password is potentially still forfeited. I personally would recommend you go and reset your password at that point, right? Make it something robust. And then the bad guy can't get in, right? So you basically stop this cycle. MFA is a simple thing to do. I think it's seen as a hindrance a lot of times. Like people go, oh, it's an extra thing I have to click. Oh, I've got to do this. You know, mine pops up in my watch. Mine pops up and says, oh, is this you? I go, yep. It takes 1 second, guys. And it's way more secure. This gets rid of a lot of the threats that are out there. It's the low-hanging fruit, really. Highly, highly, highly recommended MFA on not only email, G Suite, MS365 are the two majors, but also VPN, very important. So consider it. Okay, how the hell can we remember complex passwords for all logins? If you said, Woz, what should my password be? I'm going to tell you at least 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and nothing you've used over the past 6 months. So how are you supposed to remember Q7 _219.A uppercase S? Here's the good news. You don't have to. You don't need to remember all those, right? How do you do that? You get a password keeper. Password keepers are, we use Passportal and MXOtech. So if you're a customer, that's an option for you. You can do that and roll it out to your users. So here's what it does. It will generate robust, complex passwords for you that fit all that criteria that I just rambled off a second ago. It will store it into a secure database on your computer, much more secure than all your browsers. All your browsers want to cache your credentials, guys. Those are not inherently safe. Chrome, definitely not Chrome. I don't trust Google as far as I can throw them. Chrome, you can get through those. I've gotten through those. Firefox, same thing. Even Brave, I use Brave as a browser. Safari, all of them fall underneath this. That credential's there and you can get through it and grab that credential in some way. When you use a password keeper, it's stored in a very secure fashion on the machine and you can't get into it. Now it's also replicated to the cloud in most cases and to your phone, because the convenience of it, you can go in here. I literally, if I've got some complex password to get into my bank, I can go to the app, I can copy it on my phone, go back to the other application on here and dump it in here. So I've got robust passwords that are unique across web pages. If you've got one great password, that's fantastic. But if you're using it over and over and over and over again, that's a bad idea, guys. Because as a threat actor, if I got that one credential, let's say it's for your MS365, I'm going to go try Chase, one of the biggest banks that's used. I'm going to try BMO Harris. I'm going to try everything that you typically log into, Google, anything with those same credentials. And normally, because we use the same passwords, because again, we're trying to make it convenient for ourselves, it works and you get in. Password keepers can stop this in its tracks. And it's convenient, it's easy. In most cases, it automatically propagates the information into the browser. So if you go to yahoo.com, it lights up in the corner the little badge for whatever application you're using. It shows a little one, goes, hey, I got a password here. You click on it and it pumps it in for you. So you didn't need to type it. So password keepers for sure. And again, here's some of that I use. If you're a customer, Passportal is a great option. Ask your account manager about that, or you can use one of the other ones that are available. LastPass, OnePass, Bitwarden's one I use. I'm a fan of. Okay, common sense security tips, right? Train staff on social engineering.
Excuse me, Waz. Somebody was asking. Yep. You can still create your own passwords though and save them in the password keeper?
Yes, absolutely you can, if you feel you have them. But here's the nice thing about them, and I kind of glazed over this. It'll generate one for you. You can literally just go to it, click generate, and it will make a robust, encrypted, unique password. Making your own passwords has its own liability, and I'll explain. We tend to psychologically put things that we relate to. My street address, my dog's name, my firstborns, right? We smash up some of our kids' names, things like that. Threat actors know that. We know that. I know you're going to use those things. So I'm going to try them out. The street you grew up on, right? I know that you're going to use these things that you have called mental hooks, right? That you're going to tie them to. So I'm going to leverage those things to try and use it. So yes, you can put your own password in, but I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing that, right? Generate them. Have it generate them, because again, you don't want to have to remember them. So yes, to answer your question, great question, thank you. Train staff on social engineering. This one's important. We're doing this now. We're doing it right now, right? Thank you for being here. You're helping yourself. We utilize Breach Secure Now at MXO. If you don't have Breach Secure Now or PII Protect, as we call it, the two offerings that are there, utilize it. It's a great tool. It trains staff. They're your best asset to stop these in their tracks. Limit telephone information sharing and verify. That's an important one. Verify the source as to who they are if they're asking. I was really proud of my brother the other day. I texted him and I asked him for a password, and he writes back to me, "Prove this is Michael." That's what he said. And I was like, I called him. I go, "That was fantastic." His name's Eric. Normally he's pretty stupid, but then in that case, he was really smart, and I gave him some kudos. So verify. Physical security, no access is better. Servers shouldn't be in lobbies, guys. They shouldn't be laying on the floor. They should be in locked rooms. There's a reason for that. I can take a USB key like this, it's a little tiny one, and I can put it in there and I can take over your system. Don't let people in there, even if they got a clipboard. I've done that. I've had that exercise. You get a clipboard and a little vest and a nice hard hat, and you walk into an office and you go, "I need to see your server room. I'm with the fire marshal." And they'll go, "Oh, okay, come on in." And in most cases, they'll leave you alone. It's terrifying. You can't do that. verify people, make sure they are who they say they are. Say, hey, do you have a supervisor I can call? Hold on, let me Google it real quick and find out what the fire marshal's office is, or I'll just call the fire department and verify you are who you say you are. Call them out, right? Wireless hotspots and hotel. The two at the bottom, I'll just kind of go over. If you're traveling, guys, you get a laptop, whether it's personal use or not, use a VPN. You use a VPN. There's a lot of attacks that are in play. One of the primary ones called a man-in-the-middle attack, where you pretend to be the access point and you can grab information that goes over the wire. Use a VPN. They're cheap. They're really cheap to use. Some of them are free. I think Nort's VPN is free. Activate it. It hides you. People can't tell where you're coming from. Kind of kills some of the Google ads as well. So that's good. Antivirus is old news. You look at this newspaper, you can see it's pretty darn old. The war is over. Yeah, no kidding. Not the cyber war though. That one's still going on. But antivirus is not enough anymore, right? So what do we need? Antivirus isn't good. You need EDR, endpoint protection, detection and response, something with AI built into it. MXOtech is switching over our clients to Sentinel-1, and I'll go over that in a little bit. AI back-ended, really smart. So what's the difference? So antivirus looks at it like if you look at a police officer, it's like an APB list. Like, these are the bad people I need to look for. The problem with that is you have to have seen it once. You have to have seen that threat once. And new threats are consistently evolving. They're brand new, they're changing on a regular basis. And you don't have that luxury anymore. So these new endpoint detection and response, what it's doing is it's watching behavior. So Sentinel-1 is fantastic at this. It watches the behaviors of the programs that are executing on your computer. Kind of like a bouncer, like in a bar, right? He's looking around going like, oh, that guy's acting weird. That chick's kind of crazy, right? They're watching and seeing what's happening and assessing it. And not only that, but they record the transactions, the changes. They have a ledger of the things that have been executed, and they're able to roll them back. I've seen this illustrated and demonstrated that when a threat is executed, it can actually roll back all of the changes, including ransomware encryptions. So when your files have been encrypted, it can roll them back because it watched the entire process and how it executed, and then remove the threat. Endpoint detection and response, super important. 3 years ago, probably 4 years ago, we couldn't afford these. They were just too expensive. The one on the right is Carbon Black from VMware. It's a fantastic tool, but you can see that execution path says attack storyline in the bottom right. It shows you exactly what it touched. It tracks the entire thing, where it came from, where the threat was, how it mitigates it, how it quarantines and kills it. It's really, really impressive stuff. Believe it or not, Windows Defender is probably the best free option. It comes with Windows. It's actually rated fairly highly. The advanced tiers of it that you pay for are a little better. Sentinel-1 is my favorite by far. CrowdStrike is another one that's on here. Sentinel-1 is probably the best. I really like it. It's got a really high MITRE score, which is basically kind of like they set up a scenario where they generate threats randomly and then attack the computer, and Sentinel-1 picked up on them and mitigated them really quick. WebRoot does a fantastic job currently. That's our current endpoint security suite. Sentinel-1 still has an advantage in my mind as well. But again, identifies it based on behavior and remediates the challenge. Okay, let's talk about firewalls. Firewalls have been around for so long. Sounds hot, but it's not. Firewalls are really just like a wall of sorts, if you will, but then there's holes that you punch through it. You'll let specific ports and specific communications go through the firewall. There's an extra thing you need on your firewall called IPS, Intrusion Prevention System, and IDS, Intrusion Detection System. They're kind of the same thing, and the image at the bottom illustrates this. So they live on your firewall. Intrusion detection identifies threats that are happening, like weird behaviors, if you will. The intrusion prevention squashes the bug on the right-hand side. I love that image. But it identifies it and stops it. So even at my home, I have an IPS IDS firewall. It's probably a little too geeky for most people's houses, but it's in play. But you need to make sure your firewall has threat detection, and make sure that the subscription and the firmware is up to date on this. It's very important that your firewall is valid, has warranty for it, and that it has active subscriptions for it. Okay, affordable things to secure your business and protect your data, reputation against cyber attack. Here's our standard SOP. Security assessment. This typically happens when we do an onboarding with MXOtech. We check everything out. We look and go, hey, listen, are they up to snuff? And if they're not, we make recommendations on how to get there with you as a partner. Spam email. It's not just spam, it's upstream content filtering is the geeky term for it. We use Proofpoint. Proofpoint's a fantastic product. It's basically stopping threats before they hit the inbox. Again, no silver bullet here, guys. Things get through. They inherently will over time. But this does stop the bulk of it. And it reports it. It'll tell you, hey, listen, this is all the stuff we stopped. It's a fantastic tool to have in play. Passwords, we already went over passwords. I'm not going to beat that horse anymore. Make sure they're robust, right? Don't share them. Do not share passwords. I don't care if you've got one QuickBook account and you're like, oh, I'll just give you mine and you can make the change. Don't do that. If you give your passwords to Sally Sue and she decides to take $20,000 out of the account, you took it out. It looks like you did. It's your credential, right? Don't share passwords. Set up a new account. Make sure your passwords are robust. Use a password keeper, right? Security awareness, that's what we're doing here. Training, this is where PII Protect comes into play. It's very important. Users are your weakest link or your strongest asset. Leverage them, teach them. And not only just for the business, for the house, right? This is good for everybody, wherever they're at. Advanced endpoint protection and security, as we just went over, EDR, multi-factor authentication. Please use MFA, guys. Please just put it on. If you don't have it, ask your account manager or source it. If you're just a friend visiting, utilize MFA. It's super important. I've had people say, well, wow, can't people get around MFA? Yes, there's attacks that exist that can get around MFA. It is true, but they're so minute. And having MFA in play mitigates so many risks that are out there. We'd like to think that all these threat actors have these, elaborate schemes to get in. They're not. They're using the same damn tools over and over and over again. And by putting in these basic things, you can really mitigate a lot of your risk. Computer updates. We do that as clients with our ConnectWise agent. Make sure your computers are up to date. Sounds silly. There's a reason there's updates there. You want them there. Firmware's up to date. Workstations are up to date. Dark web research. See if your passwords are out on the dark web. That comes part as our PII Protect package. Symlog, that's more active threat monitoring for configuration changes on your network assets. Not necessarily needed on most people's. That's kind of more advanced step. Encryption at rest is the little lock there on the bottom right. I recommend encryption at rest, and all that really means is if I were to steal your laptop and extract your hard drive, can I read the files? If you have BitLocker, or if you have our ESET product on your computer, you can't do that. I can't just extract the hard drive. You need credentials to do that. So BitLocker, File Vault on Mac is what it's called. So turn that on, right? It's a good thing to have in play. Again, optional, but we lean towards putting it on. Firewall, I went over that, and it says right there, IDS, IPS, make sure those are in play, make sure they're active with active subscriptions. Web gateway security, this really comes down to DNS modifications. So we do this currently with WebRoot. We're going to be switching over to DNS filter not in too long for all of our clients. Exciting change. This basically stops people from hurting themselves. So if there's a web page that they go to that could hurt them in some way or infect their computer in some way, it blocks it before they can. Backups, super important. We use Datto. I love Datto. Datto's fantastic because you can back up locally and also geographically disperse to a cloud. You need backups. And not only do you need backups, you got to make sure they work. Datto does that. It shows us a screenshot that says, hey, this is working, it boots. If you were to get attacked, so if most of these things were or failed, right, you'll know this is a layered approach. Again, no silver bullet. If they were to fail, you can always go back to your backup. That's how you remain up, right? You're able to do it very quickly. You have a low recovery point objective, like how far back do we fall, and a low recovery time objective, how quickly can we get there, right? Datto facilitates that. Backups that run perpetually, run often, and that are tested. So.
And Waz, if I can say, a lot of times people ask, well, why do I need all of these different things? And I think, you were saying that everyone needs a layered approach to security. And the best way, as a non-technical person that I look at it is if, I might have a fence around my house, a lock on my door, an alarm system, a dog. So hopefully if someone gets through the front door and breaks the door, the alarm will go off. And if they get still in, the dog will bite them. So by putting all these different measures into place, you're just limiting the chances that they're going to get all the way through into your network.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And that's absolutely right. Layers work, guys. It really does. Just like it prevents you from getting cold, right? They always say put layers on. It's the same thing. It is multiple protections. There's no one thing that I've ever seen in my 25 years of doing this that prevents everything. So make sure they're there. Just in case everything doesn't work, right? Or something does happen, cyber insurance, look into it, see if it makes sense, talk to your insurance provider. These policies are more common now. Some companies even mandate them, to be honest. But look into it and see if it makes sense for you. See what your liability is. I mean, at worst case scenario, if you did have a breach of some nature, it's going to be bad enough. You know, you might be on the newspaper. Who knows? Which you don't want to be on, obviously. The front page, the newspaper. Who reads the newspaper? What am I talking about?
And we're even finding too that, correct me if I'm wrong, was that if some insurance brokers, if they know you have more security measures in place, you actually get a lower insurance rate. Is that correct?
That's 100% true. I will do, and I've probably done for some of the people on the call, I've gone through your cybersecurity policies for your insurance so that it can give you an underwritten policy. The more countermeasures you have in play, and by the way, everything on that list I showed you is typically on there. The more that you have, the lower your premium is. And it's important, right? You know, having a little bit of cash in your pocket in the event that something happened is something to worthwhile to look into. So look into it. You know, it's worth the extra 30 minutes or whatever to talk to your agent. Okay, so what's the best defense? So we've got MFA, we've got our firewall, IPS, IDS, we've got secure passwords that we're doing, we've got anti-malware, we've got encryption at rest, we've got AI-backed endpoint detection and response. So what's the strongest thing? What's our best asset that we have out of all of these? So in Karen's analogy, is it the fence? Is it the dog? Is it the gun under the bed? What is it? It's your team, right? It's really your team. Having them know what a threat looks like, identify it, and actually take the time, empower them to identify threats and to get rid of them on their own. Using our Breach Secure Now package is a fantastic way to do it. I'll show you that in a second here as to why it works and how it works, but it moves the needle. But empower them and teach them, again, for the house and for the home, and for the office, so that they can stop these threats, identify and stop them for you, right? They're part of that team. Security awareness and training solutions. So here's some of the features that are included within our PI Protect or our Breach Secure Now. Dark web monitoring. So it's checking to see if your password's been previously breached and if it exists on the dark web. Dark web's a thing. Passwords are out there. I see them very often. When we do prospects, we'll show them a list, go, hey, here's the 10 passwords and usernames that are on the web right now that you can grab and buy. Unlimited simulated phishing campaigns, those are fantastic. They sound like they're bad, they're not. They're meant to improve people. They don't slap you on the hand, they do it very nicely, say, hey, you shouldn't have clicked on this. Here's what you can do to avoid this in the future. Written security policies, have them, know what they look like, right? Have a written security policy that you can execute and work on. Employee vulnerability assessments. This is the same thing, identifying which people need help and which ones are doing well. It's a continued education thing, guys. You know, threats change and people need to know these new threats. Security risk assessment. You can do a security risk assessment to find out where your risks lie. And so you can mitigate them. Again, just trying to get rid of all the risks. Your business continuity is as good as it can be. Key benefits, strengthen your overall internal security. Obviously, that's going to happen. Boost security knowledge and awareness for all users. Very important. Identifies high-risk employees within the organization. That one's really important to me. There are people that just need more help. They really do. Maybe they don't understand it, whatever the case is. You know, it's not a flaw. It's just something they need help with to understand and to identify those threats. And then there's the dashboard to manage and review employee risk potential. So I'll show you this. This is the new dashboard. They just redid this within Breach Secure Now, and I think they did a fantastic job. It really does give you kind of a heads up display for you video game people out there, the HUD. It shows you a dashboard. It shows you your overall company score as to where you are, and you can watch the needle move. That's what's really impressive. We put this in, we typically see a very low baseline. That orange on the left is typically red. It's like, you know, low, I'm almost out of gas. And within a month or two, we see this needle move. Like it typically goes up substantially. There's little training videos. They do a good job of making it fun, right? So that you can watch it and kind of educate it. It's a little test, so it's retaining. They send out the phishing campaigns to see if people get caught or not. And you can visually inspect which people could use a little bit of help, right? You can see that, hey, Bob, an accounting man, he opens everything, right? So it kind of helps you through that and coach that. And again, it's showing you the data. It says you started here and you went here. It's not snake oil. It walks you through it and helps out the organization. Okay, 6 ways to improve your cybersecurity ASAP. Get a password manager, already went over that. Pass portal, if you want to talk to your account manager, we can set you up with that. LastPass or Bitwarden or other alternatives that I like. Two-factor authentication, super important. Make sure it's for email and for VPN, please. Educate yourself on cybersecurity. Congratulations, you're doing that right now. Yay, we're ahead of the game. Get your staff trained, right? Let them know. I'll help you share this information with them. Install endpoint detection and response, EDR. Super important. Again, if you're already an MXOtech client, we're switching over from Webroot and Malwarebytes over to Sentinel-1 in the next couple of months. So stay tuned on that. Consider cyber insurance. Again, talk to your agent. It's worthwhile. Always good to have a little extra reinforcement or insurance policy in back of you in the event of an issue.
Yeah, and Woz, actually, I was going to add too, if anyone needs a recommendation for a cyber insurance agent, feel free to reach out to us. You can just email actually ask@mxotech.com, or if you're a client, talk to your account manager. I know that the insurance agent we have even offers certain discounts and things to our clients. It's always good, even if you have insurance already, to get a second, opinion and second check. So.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Personal ask for me. Don't make security and don't make IT an afterthought, guys. We see it a lot with small businesses, and we know this because when we onboard organizations, we see them in a state of disarray and having a lot of risk. Having a business, running a business is tough enough on its own, but losing it because of something you just didn't know about or not keeping up to standards just isn't fair, and it's not right. So as you grow, keep IT in your mind, right? It's a tool, it's a modern day toolbox that you need, right? I always say it's the modern day hammer as IT, but it's part of our day-to-day. And making sure that we're thinking about security proactively and not retroactively is just super important. So make it part of your quarterly reviews, your annual reviews, whatever case, in your budgeting process. Just don't make it an afterthought, right? We always want to be ahead of the game instead of behind the ball.
Absolutely. Well, we want to open it up for questions. Thank you so much, Woz, for sharing everything that you did today, but I'm sure in a lot of people's minds, as much as you educated them, it also made them start thinking about their security. So feel free, if you have any questions, just to put them there in the chat or in the question box. We do have one that came in. Patricia from Terra Foundation is actually asking, they're increasingly using Teams and they're keeping documents in Teams that are no longer in their server. So are there any sort of risks associated with keeping documents in Teams? There's risks of documents being deleted in Teams, whether on accident or whether maliciously. So what I'd recommend in that case is using a product we have called Datto SaaS. So what Datto SaaS is repetitive 3 times a day. It takes a complete copy of all of the files, all of the emails, of everything. There's also some legal benefits to that too. Let's say that one of your employees sent something out they shouldn't have and said they didn't and deleted it. You can go back in time, restore it, and have that kind of proof in front of you. But you're able to restore files, whether they're, again, accidentally deleted or not. So yes, that's a great call out, Ellen. I'm sorry, Patricia. Yeah, having the Datto SaaS package, it's pretty affordable. I think it's really inexpensive. You probably want to talk to your account manager about that. But I would recommend the more you get into Teams and Office 365, you're really backing up that structure, because Microsoft really doesn't back up data. When you delete it, it holds it in kind of a recycling bin for 30 days and then it's gone. So having that feature enabled in everyone's mailbox really does give you an extra layer of protection. So great question. Great, thank you. Some of the, another question was asking, some of the password managers that you mentioned, are those business ones, or can people use those for their personal as well?
Both.
Okay.
You absolutely can. So we use Passport MXOtech for business use primarily, but you can put your personal passwords in there. I use Bitwarden personally. I like that one. It was an open source start, so I'm a huge advocate of that. And they've got a really good security mechanism, and I really like their customer sharing policy. So I utilize them. But yeah, you can use them I highly recommend them for personal use. In reality, guys, you probably have more passwords for your home than you do your business. Do you think about it? Yeah, certainly use them for personal use as well. And again, I think someone mentioned, I'm trying to look back in the chat. I think maybe it was Helen said that she was worried about getting to the passwords at multiple locations with, like, let's say Bitwarden. You have it everywhere. You have it on your phone. You have it on the web. So if you don't have your computer, you can log into the web and get it. You have it on your computer. It's in your browser. You can have a separate application. So it's not like you're ever without your passwords. There's one master password to get into it. And hopefully you protect that as well with multi-factor authentication. But yes, you can always access it.
And going back to Teams for just a minute, how safe are documents on Teams from data threat?
From data theft, I would say they're identical, identical to any other file that's on your workstation. Is it bulletproof? No, but it's secured. I mean, generally speaking, you can't share a document outside of the organization unless your settings are set for that, and you have the control of who it gets shared to, right? So within Office 365, you can't get in without credentials. You have to get in to get those files unless you shared it intentionally to someone outside of the organization. And in that case, they only need the link. So as long as you're being diligent in regard to who you're sharing it, and again, in Teams, you can do, you can give them read access only. You can give them write and read access, right? You can manipulate what that looks like within Teams and who has access to it. So as long as you're being sharp on that, it's pretty secure.
Okay. Can you talk just a little bit more about why EDR over antivirus?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things to it. One is the behavioral analysis. Antivirus is kind of like an old term, right? It has to have behavioral analysis. It's got to be watching the behavior of the files that are executing. And the most important part, honestly, I would argue, is the R, the response. Antivirus captures something. So it's seen it before. I know this is a virus, and it captures it and contains it in quarantine. So all of that kind of works the same way, except that it's not looking at a list. Endpoint detection and response can evaluate its actions. Like if it sees it talking to subsystems within Microsoft operating systems, things it shouldn't be working with, it sees that and then it seizes it, it freezes it, and it rolls back the action. That response piece is and it documents it too, by the way. You have a forensic trail. We're in a position, if there was a threat that kind of happened, the beautiful part is you never really see them happen because we have it set up to automatically remediate. But if we didn't, if we just said, hey, listen, just watch. You can watch it, and I've seen this demonstration. You can watch it execute, encrypt over 20,000 files in this specific demo that I watched, and then you get this red screen of death. Well, it tracked all those changes. So the remediation part is I can see that it did all this, and I can hit remediate, and it unwinds it all within seconds. It's pretty impressive to actually see, but it unwinds all of it, unencrypts the files, gets rid of it, and contains it. So the real difference is the way that it identifies threats versus a list with antivirus or behavioral analysis, which is EDR, and then the remediation step for it. It doesn't just capture something it's seen before and hold on to it. It also fixes the other things that it would have touched in the case of ransomware by unencrypting the files that are encrypted. I hope that helps.
Great, thanks. We did want to offer, if anyone is interested, you can go ahead and put your email address in the chat, and we will run a dark web scan for you for free on your domain. There's also Woz is also holding up a cool security mug here. Zoom in on it a little closer.
I'm going to try because normally my wallpaper takes off, but I don't know if you can read this. I hope Janice is on the call. She always likes this one. It says, "Look at you, become a cybersecurity expert and shit."
You can also put that in the chat if you want us. We have plenty of mugs we can send out to you if you want them. So if you want a dark web scan run on your domain, feel free to put your email, your domain in there, and we can go ahead and run that for you and send you the results. If there's no other questions, we thank you for being here on the call today. Thank you, Woz, for sharing all of your tips and your expertise. As I mentioned, we will be following up with a recording. If you have anyone else on your team that you want to share this with, we'll also send you some additional materials. If you don't get a chance to put your email in the chat and you decide later that you want us to run it, you can always email ask@mxotech.com. You can also email ask@mxotech.com if you'd like one of those mugs, or if you want a demo of that Breach Secure Now that we were showing you today and talking about. So feel free. We want to hear your thoughts on the webinar also. So feel free to email us or even just give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.